So I wrote ATP and NADPH in carbon dioxide in, and then glucose is produced. All right, so now we're going to zoom in even more. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about, so we're going to talk about the whole mechanism, but we start with one of the photosystems. So one of the photosystems that have the chlorophyll in it that's embedded in a thylakoid membrane. So we start with a photosystem, and there's a couple different types of photosystems. This one is called photosystem 2, and they're just named on their order of discovery. So just know that we start with photosystem 2. So I wrote PS2 for photosystem 2. What happens here, remember there's chlorophyll in there. Light energy is captured in that photosystem. Light energy is captured, and then what photosystem 2 can do is it can split water, meaning it can take a water molecule and break it down into different component parts. And one of the main thing it's going to use from that is an electron. So again, it's going to take water and split it, meaning it breaks it down. And then again, we get an electron from the water. The other thing that's produced with many organisms is oxygen. Like think about how forests and stuff give off oxygen. So if the organism is oxygenic, it will give off oxygen. There are some organisms that are anoxygenic, meaning that they don't split water, they split a different molecule, and then they don't give off oxygen, they give off something else. So you can look in your textbook for examples of anoxygenic organisms, but basically that means they don't give off oxygen, where oxygenic organisms are going to give off oxygen during this step. Okay, we're moving back to this electron. So photosystem 2 captures light energy, splits water, and gets an electron. It will then put an electron through an electron transport chain, just like you learned with carbohydrate catabolism, with the electron transport chain portion. This is going to fuel a chain of redox reactions. Those redox reactions will power ion pumps to actively pump hydrogen ions against their concentration gradient and create a nice concentration gradient outside of the cell membrane. Which you guys already know. So then these will diffuse down their concentration gradient through an enzyme called ATP synthase. That will power phosphorylation of ADP to produce ATP. All right, so this type of phosphorylation is called a photophosphorylation. And the difference between photophosphorylation and oxidative phosphorylation, they both use a very similar process, but photophosphorylation uses light. Oxidative phosphorylation does not use light. Both of them are examples of something called chemiosmosis. Chemiosmosis is simply the use of an ion gradient to power the formation of ATP. So in chemiosmosis, you have both oxidative phosphorylation and photophosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation doesn't use light. Photophosphorylation does require light for the phosphorylation of ADP. All right, so now you have your 3 because you also have substrate level phosphorylation that you find um, in carbohydrate catabolism. Okay, we're moving back to we're not done with light dependent reactions. All right, so the electron is passed down the electron transport chain, and the final electron acceptor is another photosystem. It's a photosystem 1. So this electron gets accepted by photosystem 1. Photosystem 1, remember those have the chlorophyll. It will capture more light energy and bring that electron to a high energy state to allow it to go through another electron transport chain. All right. Okay, so photosystem 1 is the final electron acceptor, and all right. So same thing. We're going to pass the electron down through a series of redox reactions, but the final electron acceptor here is going to be NADP. And NADP will get reduced, meaning it accepts that electron and becomes NADPH. All right, so our final electron acceptor, you can see we got that added on now. Okay, so let's go back and revisit our big picture. Remember, at the end of light-dependent reactions, we have the production of ATP and we have the production of NADPH. So now we got them. They are going to be fed into the light-independent reactions, these two components. And the light-independent reactions, we're not going to talk very much about the mechanism here, but it's a cycle, so it's a cyclic pathway. Sorry, that's not a good term. I should not call it a cyclic pathway. It's not the cyclic pathway that we will talk about next, but it does work in a cycle. So this is also called the Calvin-Benson cycle. Calvin-Benson cycle. Yeah, we can see that. All right. So remember, we have ATP as an input. We have NADPH as an input. We need some carbon dioxide. And different chemical reactions occur, but the main output will be glucose is formed. So pairing the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reactions together, that allows an organism to take inorganic things like light, water, carbon dioxide, and make an organic molecule and make glucose. So it's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to erase this and we're going to talk briefly about, another component called the cyclic pathway. So remember, this all is the non-cyclic pathway. So the cyclic pathway does not produce glucose, and only one photosystem is used. Only photosystem 1 is used. And like I said, it only produces ATP. It does not produce glucose. It only produces ATP. So only photosystem 1, ATP only, no glucose produced. All right, so we start with photosystem 1. All right, so photosystem 1 is going to receive light energy. And it is going to put an electron through an electron transport chain. So when light energy comes in, it allows the electron to get enough energy to be put through the electron transport chain. All right, so after this, this is going to power the active transport of the hydrogen ions to make your ion gradient. And these will run through ATP synthase to produce ATP by photophosphorylation. So one big key part here is the final electron acceptor in the cyclic pathway is back to photosystem 1. So the photosystem 1 will accept that electron. You might have been wondering, where did we get the electron from? It's a cyclic pathway, so it continues to run the same electron down. And again, it's only a way for the organism to produce ATP. It doesn't produce glucose. All right. Well, that is all that I have in this lecture.